Wow, this is pretty different, this thing. When I came on here a long time ago, it was just hundreds of viewers streaming in. Now it's like nobody. Absolutely nobody. Yo, Muka Luka, what is going on? Muka Luka's in the house. We got Mad Frankie. Mad Frankie, how you doing, my brother? You're AKA the dentist. Shit, what is that? Is that like your street name, your gangster name? Tina Sabrina Bobina Hobina. Sabrina Bobina. I don't know, does that rhyme? Is that a good rhyme? Ian Payne. Embrace the suck. Ian Payne, you got a nice rig, bro. You work out. You get those push-ups and pull-ups in. Ian, I got a question for you. How do you change your voice? Actually, I'm going to change the question. Do you like your voice? Do you like your voice, Ian? Let me know. Give me a wave or something. If you want, you can jump on a call. I'm a voice coach, Ian, so what I do is I work with people. I try and teach them elocution. I teach them public speaking skills. I teach them how to improvise off the top of their head. I teach them all kinds of stuff like that. So, I don't know, is that something you're interested in? Are you the kind of person, you listen to your voice, does it make you cringe in any way, Ian? Because a lot of people cringe at their voices. I don't know if you've noticed that. Like you listen to it back on a recording, or you watch yourself on a video, and so you're looking at it and you're like, oh, and you feel some sort of cringe. And what I've found is that the amount of cringe you feel is proportionate to the difference between where you would like to be, how you would like to sound, and how you do sound. Do you know what I mean? Like if you want to sound deeper, like if you want to have a deep voice, and you listen to your voice and it's not as deep, or you listen to your voice and you want to sound really authentic and something about it doesn't sound authentic. That gap, the measurement of that gap between how you want to sound and how you do sound, that's proportionate to the amount of cringe you feel. If it's a big gap, you'll feel a big cringe. And if it's a little gap, you won't really feel that much. You'll just be like, whatever. But you might get like a flicker of something. Do you cringe when you hear your voice, Ian? That's my question. Or do you not? Are you all good with it? Is it all comfortable and chill? Tell me, Ian. Ian Payne. No pain, no gain. Don't you believe in that? Because I think if you have that cringe, that's a sort of pain, isn't it? If you have that cringe. Ian's gone. It's a sort of pain if you have that cringe, but there's information in that pain, there's data in the pain. And if you can look inside that pain, yo, what's up? MD, what's it? If you can look inside that pain, you're going to find something. You're going to find information. You're going to find details about where that pain's coming from. Hey, hello. I can't pronounce that. How do you pronounce your name? How do you pronounce that in English? I'd like to know the pronunciation. I teach pronunciation. If you go to my page, you'll see that's what I do. But yeah, how do you pronounce that? Looks like an M at the start. And what is that? Moriam? Miriam? Something like that? Am I close? It's an A. The M is an A. Oh. Is it Miriam? Oh, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Miriam. Is that right? If that's right, give me a tick or something. Yeah, it's right. All right, nice. We're learning. Thank God we're learning something. I like to learn stuff. I don't like to just come on and just blab nonsense and try and fetch likes. I'm here to teach and I'm here to learn, so anything I can learn from you, I'm eager to hear it. But I teach elocution and pronunciation and other stuff as well, like public speaking stuff, improv stuff. Does that interest you in any way, Mariam? Anything like that? You into any stuff like that? Improvisation, public speaking, social dynamics, elocution, accent reduction. I'm going to assume by the letters in your name that you probably have some sort of accent. If you are, obviously you can type English, which is cool. Yeah, somebody's invited me to a co-host thing, so I might go to that. I think I might have missed the chance, though. I think I missed the window. Yes. Yes. So you speak English, right? And you got an accent. All right, cool. So do you live in the UK or do you live abroad? What is that that alphabet? It looks like Eastern European. Merriam. Where would Merriam be from? I would maybe guess. I don't know. Maybe like, could you be? Oh, you live in the UK. Nice, nice. But you're not from the UK, correct? So if you're living in the UK and you're not from the UK, it would depend on how long you've lived here. But I don't know. Have you ever been interested? Nice. Could you tell us, Merriam, whereabouts, like roughly you're from? You don't have to, be super specific or anything. I don't want any addresses or anything like that, but like country or just region. Is it Eastern Europe, Merriam? Is that where it is? Because something I find Eastern European clients, they'll tend to have a lot of consonants in their accent and their speech. And so their jaws will tend to be a little tighter. Germans in particular will have very tight jaw settings. My parents are born in Bangladesh, really. All right, nice, nice. Okay, yeah, I don't know, something about the letters. I think it was the backwards R. That was like tripping me up. For some reason, it looked like some Eastern European, like Russian text or something. Bangladesh, okay. So would I be right in assuming that you've got something more of an Indian accent? And it would be something a little more India. Do you perhaps speak a little more through your nose? Is it a little more nasal? It's just like it's a really bad impression. I don't want to be rude to you or whatever. But Indian, is it like a sort of Indian sounding accent that you've got? Because something with Indians, I'll find they could talk with a lot of nasal resonance. You're born in the UK though. All right, nice. All right, cool. So you're born in the UK. Sorry, I think I've already asked this. I think there's a little delay in the questions, but you're born in the UK. Do you have an English accent or a foreign accent? English or foreign? Which do you have? Because if you have a foreign accent or an English accent, the approach I would take, an English accent. Cool, all right, cool. So then for you, it's not, if you're thinking about, is this something you're interested in? Like, you're staying on the call right now so far, so maybe something I'm saying is, caught your interest, I don't know. But would you be interested in like elocution, pronunciation, or is it more like public speaking and social dynamics and how to have a good conversation and flow of speech and thinking of things off the top of your head? And that's what I call public speaking. Or would you be more elocution? You be my guide, Mary. Tell me where you want me to go with this live. Elocution, public speaking. All right, nice. Okay, cool. So public speaking. What do you want to know about public speaking? Is there something about your voice? The title of this live, I don't know if you can see it. I'm kind of new to this whole thing. The title of this live is How to Change Your Voice. And in that, I include public speaking. So improv, how you come up with the things that you say, how you to never say or that's a common one. How to not get nervous in front of groups. How to have a good flowing conversation. Stuff I really enjoy talking about and stuff that I'm really interested in is like social dynamics and reading the room and seeing how people react to you and what it is that they might be thinking about you, like their perception, and how you can signal things to change their perception, if you know what I mean. You know, like some people might think that you're, I don't know, they might think you're kind of introverted. Like, how do you go about changing that identity as an introvert? How do you change that perception of you as an introvert? Because I have this little bit of I don't know if it's like an unpopular opinion, but maybe controversial opinion. I think that somebody who's an introvert can become an extrovert if they wanted to. And they might not be able to do it for like constantly all the time, because have you heard this, Miriam? If you're still on, I don't know if Miriam's still on. Hopefully you are. But have you heard this, that introverts are people who lose energy in social interactions, and extroverts are people who gain energy in social interaction? Have you heard that, Miriam? Yo, what's up, Michael? Welcome, my G. How's it going, dude? You're interested in this conversation, introvert, extrovert? Because I think yeah, you have heard about that. Miriam has heard about this, okay? Well, what do you think, Miriam? Do you agree? Michael, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree that if an introvert is someone who loses energy in social situations, like going out to a bar or a club, going out to a New Year's Eve party? Loads of people went to New Year's Eve parties the other day. An introvert, by that definition, would be somebody who's losing energy doing that. And they come home and they feel all drained. And maybe while they're out there, they're like, oh, getting all tired from it. Whereas an extrovert, they'll come home like pumped up because they've just received all this energy from people. So, I mean, let's ask this question first. What do you guys think of that definition? Is that a good definition of introvert and extrovert? Do you agree with that definition yet? Or would you offer a different definition? Is an introvert someone who loses energy in social interactions? And an extrovert is someone who gains energy in social interactions? Agree or disagree? What are we saying? Saf, what's going on? Saf. Is this a Saf I know? Yes, you agree, Miriam. All right, interesting. Okay, so then Miriam agrees that an introvert is someone who loses energy in social interaction, and an extrovert is someone who gains energy in a social interaction. What do you think, Saf, if you're still here? Agree or disagree? Because then if we're using that definition, right, would it be possible to look at how an introvert is losing that energy and why an introvert is losing that energy? Because what I suspect actually, is that I'm going to get both my hands free for a second so I can gesticulate. Because I think that if you're someone who is losing energy, it's not like just by being out, you're losing energy, because there are some people, maybe you're an introvert. Miriam, have I got this right? You're an introvert. If you're with some people, you can actually gain energy from being with some people some of the time. Yes, you are an introvert. Nice. Do you gain energy being with some people some of the time? Or is it just all people you lose energy with all the time? Or just some of the time you might be with somebody and you actually feel like you've been lifted in energy, you actually get a little gain on some occasions, sometime. Like maybe like a family member you really, really love, like my granddad. I would lose a lot of energy being around. I actually do gain energy with my friends a little. All right, sweet. Nice. Okay, interesting. So then I would look at that and I would go, if you're gaining energy with those friends a little, right? So some of the time you're gaining it and some of the time you're losing it, correct? And it happens to be that most of the time you're losing it, but some of the time you're actually gaining it. So then if I'm looking at that, I would say, well, what's happening in the times where I'm gaining it? What's happening there? Is it What is it about the person I'm with? What is it about the context I'm in? What is it about the interaction that is causing me to gain the energy? Some of the time. Versus when I'm losing it, what is it that is about the context I'm in and about the people I'm speaking with? What is it about those interactions where I'm losing it so much? And would there be a way to have slightly more time spent, percentage of time spent, where I'm actually gaining energy and slightly less time spent where I'm actually losing energy? For example, Miriam, if you're still on, can you give maybe a brief description? Maybe think of a time where you were gaining energy with some people. So those just joining, Miriam has disclosed that she is a introvert. And I've got this question about, is it possible to become an extrovert? And what I'm thinking is, my hypothesis is that if you start to gain more energy than you lose it, even just from 49% losing 49% losing on this side, the lower one, and 51% gaining, what if, because then you're by definition, you're an introvert, because you'll be losing 2% more energy than you're gaining. So by definition, you're an introvert. And it would just be, your time horizon would be longer. You'd be able to sustain the interaction for a fairly long time if you have a lot of energy. My friends are just crazy, so I just be the same with them sometimes, really. All right, nice. Okay, so you gain energy with your crazy friends and when you're being crazy as well. So then if I take that and I'm saying that's where you're gaining energy, it sounds like maybe when you're losing energy, you might be with people who are not crazy like your friends are. Or that you don't feel you could be crazy with. And so you're having to expend energy to fit in with whatever their expectations are and what they deem acceptable, because there are things you would like to do that you find acceptable with your friends, but if you're around other people, maybe they don't give you that same sort of grace. You don't feel like you have as much space to truly be who you want to be in that moment, in that time. And so because of that, you're having to check yourself to edit and make sure you don't say the wrong things, or that you manage your volume or your body language or stuff. You can't just be, because I would get this with certain friendship groups where I always feel best when I can just be a total weirdo and a bit of a freak and just be really silly and dumb and basically have no judgment. And actually this is probably the area I think people lose the most amount of energy in, is the judgment. But it's not, because somebody judging you, that doesn't actually drain us of energy specifically. It can cause us to lose energy, but where we lose energy is when we start reacting in a way to compensate for that judgment that somebody else is having on us. Like if somebody judges me, as has been the case many times, let's see, what's some common judgments of me? I don't know, maybe that I'm attention seeking, that I'm kind of loud, and people will judge me harshly for that. Judgment is protection of self-hatred. That's an interesting thought, Cody. Thanks for sharing that. Judgment is protection of self-hatred. Can you explain that a little bit more, Cody? I think I might know what you're talking about. And I think that we're in agreement on that. I don't know, Miriam, what do you think of that, what Cody said? Judgment is protection of self-hatred. That's interesting. Because what's interesting about that, people dislike them. Okay, so Cody's following up. Thank you, Cody. People dislike themselves and want others to feel the same. It's a projection. 1000% agree. 1000%. Without realizing it, we tend to try to make other people feel the way we feel. And if other people feel judged, they'll try and make you feel judged. If other people hate themselves, they'll try and make you feel hated. Have I got that right, Cody? Is that about right? Cody liked the live. Thank you, Cody. Thank you. And anybody else who's liked the live? Like Miriam, if you've liked the live, I don't know, maybe you have done. Maybe you haven't. If you haven't, smash that like button. That's the first time I've ever said that. But it's one of my first lives. Reality is perception. Shit, Cody's dropping all the bombs right now. Reality is perception. So our idea of ourselves... Oh, thank you, Miriam. She did like it. Thank you. Reality is perception. So our idea of ourselves becomes how we see others. I'm going to read that again. Reality is perception. So our idea of ourselves becomes how we see others. Exactly. Right. Because you can't see anything outside of yourself. We're gonna bring this back to Miriam in a minute. We're gonna bring this back to because I want to help anybody who's on here who's talking about this. Cody wants to join as a guest. Shit, let's get Cody in. Let's bring Cody in. Let's see what Cody's saying. Cody's got all the wisdom nuggets, so let's see what she's got to say.
Hello.
Cody! How are you doing, my sister from another mister?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I'm intrigued. Where did you get that? Is that something you've come into in your own understanding, that reality is perception, so our idea of ourselves become how we see others? Or is that something like you heard from somebody, or where did you hear that? Where did you get that?
Just from self-awareness. So a few years ago, I realised something triggered me, and I asked myself why I got to the root of the problem. Turned out it wasn't anybody else's problem but mine, and that is the reality for most people.
Interesting. You realize something triggered you. Can I ask, can you remember, you don't have to be specific if you don't want to, obviously. Share whatever you want to share, but could you maybe talk a little bit more about what it was that triggered you, and how did you because when people get triggered by stuff, this is where I'm talking about this energy leak, where we can react to things internally. And I think this is what's happening for a lot of introverts, is things are going on around them and they'll be reacting in a way to try to compensate for things, to try to respond to judgments and try to respond to what's happening in this reactive state. And the result is we end up expending a lot of energy internally, and people might not even notice, they might not even see it. Or they might see it, might see us reacting and being judgmental or whatever. But I think that's where a lot of energy goes. But for some reason, we can't see it. It's not very obvious to us. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like our brain is an echo chamber.
Yes. Yeah. Brain's an echo chamber. I think you actually don't really experience anything outside of yourself, do you?
Not really, unless one goes on a spiritual journey.
Unless what, sorry?
One goes on a spiritual journey.
Then you can experience things outside of yourself?
Yeah, from different perspectives, because you don't have the ego and every other thing holding you down.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, because when we say ourselves, we're talking about ego, aren't we?
Absolutely. The Jungian theory is quite interesting. The Jungian theory.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, can you tell us about is it the Jungian theory? Is that right? Jungian?
I think it is. It's more about it's like 3 dimensions of society. So it's like oneself, one's close, and just decompartmentalizing all of that, and on a societal level as well, and being able to... Sorry, I'm not very good with my words.
No, you're doing great. I'm loving this. You're giving us some amazing ideas. You said the self. Did you say one's close?
I'd say
Were you
so.
gonna say one's close? Sorry, go on.
I came from a religious background, so for myself, it was mainly like the body, the soul, and the spirit all being interconnected, and that was like the Holy Trinity, but for self-divinity.
Okay, nice.
So that's more of the theory. I know about Carl Jung a little bit, but not too much.
Hmm. I'd like to know more about that division because what you just said, the sort of trinity, the way I've always imagined that and the way I like to think about a human being actually is that it's very useful to be thinking about ourselves in terms of a spirit, which is like what we actually are, our source for all experience. That's what we're actually um, experiencing at the very core level. It's like the. It's not even like programming. That would be the mind. You'd be spirit looking through a mind, which is controlling a body. The
Yeah.
body is the physical, the mind is mental, and the spirit is obviously spiritual. What do you
And
think of that?
I'd go one step further
Yeah,
to
do
say
it.
that when when humans evolved, they were born with two parts of the brain, and as evolution happened, they were born with three. And I think maybe that's self divinity when all three are working cognitively together. That's
Yes.
divinity and self realization.
Yes. Can you tell us? Because I think I've got an idea. I would say like maybe there's like this reptilian part, which is like survival, and then the dolphin part, which is the emotional, and then what they call the monkey or whatever. That's like the neocortex. Is that the sort of thing you were thinking of, or something else?
Absolutely, but when it all comes together, it's the perfect mixture of three. And I do think that's why neurodivergent people are policed, because they can see outside of those three parts of the brain to be aware of the brain sometimes.
Right. Hmm. That's interesting. This idea that neurodivergent people are policed because they can see outside of that. There's uh, there's this word when you said a word divinity, and I'm interested in this word. Have you ever heard of this word apotheosis?
No, I haven't. I'll Google it.
Yeah, give it a quick Google. If you could you would you mind sort of helping us out a little bit? And if you could Google apotheosis and tell us what it means.
So, the highest point in the development of something, a culmination or climax. So, that would be, say, for example, when a person's enlightened in Christianity by God, or it could be when somebody reaches a peak, or when the frontal lobe develops.
Are you on Google right now?
Yeah.
Do you have that bit? There's like a little bit underneath the word where you have the etymology. Do you see that bit?
The origin, it's a Greek name. So,
Uh huh.
apo means from, theos means God, apotheon make a god of, which means that when it's like hemisync, like when both hemispheres of the brain sync together, that creates true divinity. So that's essentially
Right.
what is hemisync, but it helps to create your brain into working as if it was divine.
Hemisync. That's an interesting word. Hemisync. Where did you hear that?
I went down the rabbit hole of the Gateway Project by the CIA.
The the Gateway Project. Okay, tell me more about that. I think I might have heard. I probably heard something or a little bit about that, but I can't. I couldn't tell you which one it is exactly.
So the government basically came out and said that life is maybe not a simulation, but it's simulated senses that inputs into the computer, which is our brain and our nervous system, and that's how we feel. But hemisync is where both hemispheres of the brain, and they did quite a lot of tests and experiments on quite a lot of kids. Back in the 90s, I was actually one of them. Um, and they basically did binaural beats in both sides of the ears in order to try and get both hemispheres of the brain to sync up so that you could
Did that
actually,
work?
yeah,
Really?
um,
Binaural beats in both sides?
yeah. Also breathe in a lot, and then the temple below your ear, if you like tap it, it's like somatic. It can also trigger both sides of the brain. Yeah, the pressure points.
No, really.
There's a
That's
reason
interesting.
why.
I Go on.
Sorry, I believe
No,
that
no,
the
go.
reason
You go
why the
ahead.
pressure points are a fit like I think the reason why they're so physically vulnerable is because they're spiritually vulnerable too. And they line up with the chakras, really.
Really interesting. Wow, so you were part of this gateway project then?
Yeah.
Okay. What did you what did you think of that? Like looking back on that, was that something you weren't you were aware of at the time, or did they not like did they give you informed consent, or not so much, or was it like it actually ended up being a good thing, or how did it all go?
It's a
What's
good
your
thing
reflection?
because I started going through like looking at spirituality and how that coincides with religion and how that coincides also with physics and quantum mechanics. Um,
Right.
but it wasn't informed consent because all they said was, "You're smart. Go in this room, read this book, and tell us what you think."
Right. That's something I've heard about all those types of government operations and that they compartmentalize everything. Is that something you've heard?
Yeah, absolutely. It's more like we're gonna give you breadcrumbs of the truth, but we're not gonna tell you really what's happening.
Mm. Hmm. One thing you said earlier was about this input. Miriam, are you still on how to change the voice Akatsu? Yes, this is how to change your voice. Believe it or not, we're talking about it. This conversation, we're talking about becoming divine, we're talking about apotheosis, hemisyncing, the hemispheres of your brain, and it all has relevancy on how to change your voice, believe it or not. Thank you for joining us.
Every single
Cody's been
thing is a
sharing some.
frequency. Sorry.
Go no no.
Um,
Seriously, don't apologize. Can I say actually one thing? Don't I want when you're coming on, I want people to come on and talk and share, and I'd rather other people talk as well. One, it gives me a little break, and two, you're gonna cross reference. You're going to validate the things I'm saying because otherwise I'm just some crazy guy sitting here talking about random stuff about the brain and spirit and body and stuff. So it's nice when somebody else comes on, and and if I may as well, just add to that that this like when you're apologizing for an introvert, they might not say it out loud. I'm kind of saying they and we because I kind of see myself as one as well. I sort of float in between, but I think that introverts, especially, will be overly apologetic, like this tendency of people pleasing, and really that's where I think all the energy is going. And that's why we become an introvert, is because interactions become a net loss of energy because we might be apologizing, like just then you're apologizing when no apology was necessary, but you don't know that, but you're saying that, and until I can say this what I'm saying now so that you know that you don't need to apologize anymore, right? And then you can, I mean, when I say that, does anything happen where you go, okay, now you free up more energy now that you know you don't have to apologize?
it makes a lot more sense,
What were you going to say though?
yeah. 1 second, it'll come back to me.
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
so
Take your time.
basically, everything, even in between atoms, is like frequencies and waves, light waves, sound waves, radio waves, microwaves. Everything is waves. So if everything is waves, so can energy that goes around our like it can change our voice because we can change the different frequencies. We can change even having a positive attitude just by frequencies, like music. Music can literally change your mood, or it can be a good way of expressing it. But literally everything is waves, so everything can be manipulated if needs be.
I've heard this idea that there are actually four forms of water.
Yeah.
There's the solid, which is ice, the liquid, which is water, the gas, uh, which is H2O, whatever. Which
Yeah.
is obviously it's all just different names for the same thing, right? H2O is still H2O when it's frozen. It's still H2O when it's liquid. It's still H2O when it's gas. And then there's plasma as well. And that's the one where, if I'm saying this right, something I saw the other day, just what you were saying there with the waves, it was making me think about this. That something I learned the other day is that this fourth form of water, and it's this fourth form of matter, basically, is where an atom, it the electrons become released or something like that, and then they're allowed to move around the environment in a way they couldn't in gas, liquid, or solid. And I
Absolutely.
don't know if that like ties into what you were saying.
And in a lot of religious texts as well, especially with Nordic mythology, ether as well. That's like a different element as well. So there's certain subcategories of elements, but there's also different elements that if we knew how to cope with, we would not need capitalism, for example.
Okay, tell me more about that. Do you have some ideas about that?
Yeah, well, I see it as when we're born, we go into like a soul recycling machine. And I do think that the electromagnetic field around our bodies, which is like our aura or whatever people see, is literally just radiation from. It's like it's like the steam off water for what the consciousness happens. So when thoughts happen, potential energy goes into it. That's what it radiates because it's all of the potential energy and stuff. But it's not the same thing as potential energy, but that's essentially what electromagnetic fields are. Hence why plasma still happens when people die and go like ghost hunting and they find it. And then that's why the soul continues if it hasn't got to the full like cycle of consciousness yet.
Interesting. And in that metaphor, is that would that be the water is like the soul or the spirit? I don't know. You said something earlier that made me think there was a really nice distinction between those because it's always been a bit of a mystery. Those to me, I mean, to me, spirits always felt like fire, and souls always felt like water. But maybe we could talk about that in a second. But is the steam would be the thoughts?
Yeah, it'd be the spiritual energy that's coming from that. So the spiritual energy that we have inside is different to the spiritual energy we put out into the world in most cases. Like with star signs, we have our sun sign, which is like our identity and how people see us. And then our rising sign is exactly who we are, and it would be a similar kind of concept with the water in our body and the energy that's radiated from every thought or bit of consciousness.
I like that radiated from every thought of consciousness because we're talking about how to change your voice. I think you've got your spirit would be like the water, and then if thoughts are like the steam, that's almost like clouds coming up. And then when you when you hear someone's voice or when someone's talking, like as I'm talking now, it's almost like the rain just dropping down again. It's like the end of that sort of precipitation cycle where, and actually all this can happen without you saying anything. You could just be sitting there and this cycle will be going on. Like a thought can feed back into your feeling and the feeling can go back into the thought, and it will always be rising like that, rising, returning. And that if you just have a thought, have you noticed if you just have a thought, like sometimes now as we're talking, and I felt myself actually, I'll be really honest, I could feel when you come on, Cody, I felt a little bit nervous because I'm thinking, I'm talking to somebody and they're very smart, very intellectual, and they're knowing lots of interesting things. And I see myself starting to think about, well, how do I keep this conversation like on track, and how do I make sure I can manage it? And then I'm going, wait, but that's exactly what we're talking about, where I'm starting to expend energy, and I can feel in my vocal folds, I could feel them getting a little tight and almost tremoring. I don't know. Most people probably don't notice it. I don't know if you ever noticed that or felt that in any way whatsoever, but I think if you have a thought and that thought is arising from this feeling, when I say feeling, I don't just mean like an emotion, but I mean like an awareness of something. I don't even know what the freak I'm meaning, to be honest. But like spirit, soul, fire, something's coming. There's an extension. It goes up into my mind, and I'm getting thoughts. And then because of the thoughts I'm having, as I start feeding it with my attention, my awareness, they start to gather more energy, and then they start to influence that feeling, and that feeling can get worse. And if I'm not paying attention to it, then I can start to get a bit nervous, and I can feel my vocal folds my fifth chakra or whatever starting to clench and starting to implode as I start to feel like I need. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I understand that. It's so I've noticed that when people have energy, like obviously it goes through their whole body, their thoughts, everything. I see all humans as like being a conductor for an electric grid in the world. So we all have our different types of energy, and one can like bounce off the other, but one can reach on a circuit board where maybe, well, as humans we have self-awareness, so it's like maybe my light bulb on the electric grid on the circuit, the LED light on a circuit board, maybe isn't gonna reach that part. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah. It needs you need connection, right? You can be on the board, but if the wires, if it's not I can't remember what it is. It's like if the earth wire is going into the so and so socket, like the light won't switch on. I remember I went to when I was 16. I went to work experience. Did you have that work experience week at school?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went to this place. It was my neighbor across the street. He was working for this product design company, and I got to spend the week there. I just did nothing basically. I just sit there all day waiting for them to like give me the odd task, and it was literally like just once every few hours they might be like move this to the other side of the building or whatever. And one time someone was like, I need you to design this circuit board, and I was like, I don't know how to design a freaking circuit board, but I put it together and I squished it all the wires. He wanted me to make it really small, and I was just like, I got it all together on this app or something. It was like this piece of software they had, and it like condensed it all down. And I showed it to him, and he was like, "Oh, nice, that's tiny." And he looked at it, and he was like, "Wait, no, but this wire is going into that, and that wire is going to no, that's not going to work." And I was like, "Oh, that's like some electrical rule thing, like it needs to link up in a certain way." And he was like, "Yeah, no, you can't, because this needs to go around this way, so this needs to move, and these components need to change, otherwise it won't work, because it won't. The circuit's not complete." Is that kind of like what you're saying?
Absolutely. Like as human beings we have to be, if we're if we're all gonna get to not the same point energetically, but a similar part, like on our different paths, that person then has to be receptive to a certain type of energy and understand the wavelength that they're actually on, rather than, if I don't know if that makes sense. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
no.
of the circuit board as a metaphor, so
I think that I don't know much about electromagnetism and stuff like this, but I know there's like the two poles, and one's positive and one's negative. And I think that when we are in an environment, so we bring it back to that introvert extrovert thing. Miriam, are you still here? Are you still watching? Because I'm hoping this can help you, Miriam. But anyone who's watching who's an introvert, pay attention right now, because there are moments where if you're gaining energy, that's when you're in positive. That's when you're in this positive mindset. And the way I would describe it is basically almost like no mind, where there's no mind. You're not ego attached. Your attention, your consciousness is not attached to ego. It's not in mind right now.
yeah.
It's in spirit. And it's almost like mind and body, or mind and spirit, would be like the positive and negative, and the spirit might be like the positive, for example.
That's where
And go on.
that's where mind over matter comes into it. Like the actual term. I do believe it's rooted in when when we have positive feelings, or any feelings that are productive to growth as people, and anything we can turn into like a positive thing for us, that's the mind being able to shift the perspective, therefore shift the reality, therefore shift the brain's way of thinking into thinking that it is a lesson. But then the matter side of it, it's like the sensations you feel, so like what you can touch, feel, smell, and your environment around you. So I think I'm just trying to say in a long-winded way, I'm an introvert too. Like, it literally is mind over matter, because the way people perceive us is none of our business. But also, they'll only have a problem with you. They see something in you that you have and they don't usually. They will usually have an issue with the way you're doing things because not only will, if somebody is doing it out of the kindness of their own heart, they will not come from a judgmental place. And then, but you can just sense with the energy off. But yeah, but just don't give an F what people think to all the introverts out there because people really are worth the thought it takes for judgment and stuff.
It's an interesting statement, that one, to not give an F, because I think it can give you a lot of power, but at the same time, I don't know if it's the best way forward. Like there are times. Do you know what I mean? Like there are times for it. Like if a mother didn't give an F about whether or not her baby was crying for food.
But it's not about the physical things, it's the emotional things that other people try to project onto you. Like a child
Right.
isn't going to be, or an infant isn't going to be aware enough to judge you. Therefore, the judgment doesn't come from your child. It comes from you because you know in your consciousness that that is what you need to be doing biologically, evolutionary, like sustainably in order to keep a child alive. But when with other people, like other adults, they've lived a different life, they've gone down a different journey, a different path, they probably come to different conclusions than you, some similar, but they probably come to different conclusions. But their way is not always going to be the right way of doing things. So their judgment holds no weight as to who you are, who you're being, what you're doing in your life. Because if if they're spending their time and energy caring on you, then that means that they have no energy or time for themselves, and that just says more about themselves than others.
Yeah, I like when you said holds no weight. I think that would be better than to not give a fuck. Is to realize the truth, which is that whatever their opinion of you is, it holds no weight over how you expend your energy or how you behave or how you need to behave or think or do or whatever else. And what I think causes introverts to lose a lot of energy. And you say you're an introvert. Tell me what you think of this. Like, if someone, if you're in an interaction and you're expending a lot of energy, like, have you ever noticed if you do find yourself actually by accident, you're giving a fuck about something you shouldn't give a fuck about, right?
Yeah,
And then you realize, like, in giving a fuck about it, you're expending energy to try to appease or please or be accepted by or whatever for that person. But really, if you're fully conscious of like what you've just said now, because there are moments where we can kind of fall into it, we don't realize we've gone into it, and then in that moment we're like giving up energy. But if we can realize that what they're judging or what they're projecting on us actually holds no weight, it's almost like a sort of trance that we go into. And I think the fastest way, like one of the most easy ways for people to get hypnotized, and it's happening all the time. And hypnosis, it's like we're going asleep, we're becoming less conscious, we become unconscious of this, what you're talking about now, and we're going asleep, and we're no longer aware of that. And so just like in a dream, where if you're in a dream, have you ever been in a dream you don't realize, and you start like it's like a bad dream, and you're like expending a lot of energy, panicking about whatever is going on in the dream, and then you wake up, you're like, oh, thank God it's not real.
absolutely. I've also had dreams where that energy has continued with me throughout the day. And then you have to like close it off. I class it as spiritual. I don't know whether you have any beliefs or what your thoughts are on that. But I
Yeah,
class it
so
as spiritual.
I would agree. I would class it as spiritual as well. I think it's the spiritual. It's like it is the mental and it is the physical, but it's like you know, like have you heard of like hermetic principles and things like this?
Yeah, I've researched heavily on them.
Nice, nice, dope, dope. You know, like they talk about, I think it was like Hermes Trismegistus or whoever, they're talking about there's the spiritual, the mental, the physical, but they're all one and the same thing, and ultimately they are just spirit. But they're so different in the way that we experience them that it's like helpful to view them as being three different things, but we should also remember that they're actually not, that they are just one and the same thing.
That you could say the same thing for humanity too, as well, then, because
That
we're
they're
all different, but we are all the same thing.
right, right. And so, yeah, which adds a whole nother layer to it where it's like that person's judging me, which means they're judging them.
Yeah.
And then I'm witnessing that person judging me, but what I'm actually witnessing is me judging me as well.
Yeah.
So I just want to like loop this in before we forget about it. And I'm gonna have to end soon, but I'm really enjoying this conversation. So I want to go a little bit longer, but I do need to speak to some people. Actually, somebody was calling me, but one thing I'd like to get back into. You said at one point the dream will continue. The energy, you'll take that energy into the rest of your day, and it will sort of continue. Well, and then you said, and I love this, that you'll have to kind of close that out. Do you remember that when you said that? Can you think of like a specific example of what you mean by that exactly?
Um, as strange as it may sound, I'll do like a cleansing thing, either like so when I'm brushing my hair or doing like say actually for example, I will speak to the bathwater and I will tell it the worries, the energy, all of those things. And then when I pull the plug out, get out the bath, I watch the water wash it away. I'm visualizing all those worrying thoughts being washed away from me, going down the drain, being recycled into something good, giving life. Um, and because that is my perception of what's happening, it becomes my reality. Therefore, it happens. I don't feel that way anymore.
I love that. Because that's your perception of what's happening, that becomes your reality, and then you don't feel that anymore. So it's like in those moments, this, and if you're in the hypnosis, if you're in the trance, if you're in this, I like to think of it as like an inversion state. You know, we were talking about grids, we're talking about electricity, and we got those poles, positive and negative. There are things that feed you, and there are things that drain you. Like you can even, and it's like what it actually is. Like if you were to write out what's happening, like somebody says this or somebody does that, something like somebody could swear at you, somebody could insult you, and it could actually feed you. Like somebody could call me a nerd, and I'd be like, "Amen, thank you very much. Yes,
That's
please."
alchemizing energy.
I'm sorry.
It's the alchemy of energy that
Alchemy of energy, turning lead into gold. Somebody
literally.
shoots the lead at me, and I go, "That's just the raw material I was looking for. Thank you so much." And with my mind, that conduit between my body, mind, spirit, the middleman there, I can use my philosophy and my perception of things as long as I'm aware of. If I'm unaware, I can't do it. And if I'm in an emotional state, if I'm in an intense state, I have these. I like to call the recently. I've been calling it like these repolarization moments, where in that moment, like I would be out somewhere, and I'd feel these ways that I'm losing energy. Like I'm in a crowded place and people like pressing in on me, and I'm trying to like avoid taking up space, and then I start. It's I'm expending a lot of energy and attention doing that, and then I sort of check myself and I go, wait a second, I'm losing energy right now, and then I go, what if what would I need to believe about what's happening? Like, what am I believing right now that's making me feel the necessity to expend energy right now? Well, because if I don't manage my space, I'll like bump into someone and then they're gonna get annoyed at me, and it's like, but wait, hang on a second. It's a crowded space. People are bumping into each other. I'm in my space. I'm not moving. I'm not moving into other people's space. Am I doing anything wrong? No. Could somebody bump into me? Yes. Does that mean that necessarily that it can end negatively? Or like, if I'm really thinking about it, if I'm really aware, is it more likely? Because I can see people bumping into each other all the time. Nobody's swinging. Nobody's getting aggy. Nobody's getting upset. Other people are smiling and laughing. Like, it's just me, and it's my insecurity, my sort of fear about what could come about. And in just that little moment, I can close. Sorry, go on.
So, introverts and people pleasers, they naturally have to spend more time in their brains. Therefore, they are more self-aware. So when they're scared of taking up space, they're scared of their own power, energy, whatever you want to call it. So introverts are more... Extroverts more go with it. Introverts internalize it, that energy, rather than showing it to the world, if that makes sense. So when people are scared of taking up space, they're scared of the power that their energy would actually hold if they were able to retain it. So it's like, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's a consistent cycle until the cycle's broken, but not so much.
Those are the moments where I think I've gone into my ego, and I've gone into this inversion state. And what I've found to be the hook that gets me in there is it's a higher value. It's like something where I don't want to be imposing on people or irritating people or bumping up against them, because I'm not. And then I'm attaching like this negativity to it, that just by staying still, not bumping into anyone, other people bump into me, or I'm in their way. But it's an inverted perspective. And I'm only thinking that because of that fear of having attention drawn to me, because in the past that would lead to something negative or whatever.
Absolutely.
And it's Go on.
I think the perfect metaphor for that is introverts thinking extroverts have like bejeweled, like sparkly, filled with diamonds, like a mask. But introverts assume that they have a translucent mask. So everybody can see them, who they are, makes them emotionally vulnerable. That's why they don't like being put in the spotlight or speaking to people, because they're worried that people can see their energy. They feel vulnerable when people see their energy.
So I think in these moments, if we're looking at it like a grid, my flow of energy, it's been turned inwards.
Yep.
And that's why I'm feeling drained. And it's like, all I need to do, actually, if we're thinking of electromagnetism, it's not effort, it's not even philosophy. It's not even like that can help. And when you go away and think about it later, the philosophy can help you see the truth. But in the moment, it's going like, if I'm worried about that fear and what could happen and that and all of that, how can I invert this perspective? Like, if this, what did I need to believe to feel this negativity right now? And like I need to expend a lot of energy to. Oh, Holly's so a friend of mine's joining. Oh, I tried to. Dang. Yo, try and join again. Little off life. Little off life. Try and join. Try and join again. Yes, please join right now. We're gonna wrap up this conversation right now. I'm just. Yes. Hello. You've requested you and accept. Cody, this is Little Loft Life. This is a friend of mine.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hey, Little Loft Life. We're
Hey.
talking about.
Oh, I didn't know if you could hear me. Sorry. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, we're talking about, so if you're like introverts, extroverts, draining energy, gaining energy, right? Extroverts gain energy, introverts losing energy. And I think it's like, if you're having a net loss, then you're an introvert. If you're having a net gain, then you're an extrovert. And what this discussion, what we've been talking about, I mean, we've gone into some things, but there are moments where I feel that I can see how I'm losing energy, but I can see how I'm losing it is because of something I'm believing about the situation that isn't true. That I need to expend energy to protect myself in some kind of way. But then if I go, what would I like if I was God, if I was like a little minion of God, a child of God, and he wanted me to have my best life, and he didn't want there to be anything standing in my way that didn't need to be there. If I didn't want it to be there, I could just God power it away, right? And if perception is reality, if reality is perception, what is it about my perception? Who's in control of my perception? It's me. And if something about my perception is meaning that I'm draining, I'm losing energy, I'm having to expend energy where I ought not to, how can I flip that perception and either just let it go or flip it into something where I'm gaining energy? And we were talking about this inversion perspective. And when you're in ego, I think it's your attention. It's like, if you look in a mirror, like if I have writing, when I look in the mirror, it will flip it backwards. And I think when people are introverted or they say they're losing a lot of energy, they'll say that we'll say that we're like self-conscious. But I think that's that ego perspective. We've gone into this inversion perspective where we're looking at ourselves like through a mirror. We're not looking at ourselves, we're looking at our reflection that our perception is conjuring up. And all we need to do, go on.
Have you ever heard of neuroplasticity?
Of the what, sorry?
Neuroplasticity.
Yes.
That's a very big one with harnessing energy, like psychology, the nervous system, and if you look into spirituality, they're all so interconnected that one could help with the other.
1000%. Your brain's like the computer. Your brain, your mind is like the software. Your body's like the hardware. I think is one way of thinking about it. And with the software, if the way I'm thinking about the situation, if I don't like it, if that's my perception, something about my programming, when I'm receiving data, we were saying earlier, your body's like a data receiver. Something about my software, the way my computer's interpreting that data, might be off. And if I'm not interpreting something as it, like, if I'm there's the truth, which is absolute, and then there's the delusion, which I might be creating about that. And I think we feel a degree of stress, and it's almost like God's way of telling us, or the universe's way of telling us, when we're off, when our perception isn't right, is the amount of stress and negativity and problems you end up having. Even in like a situation where there's no immediate threat to our survival, we're just in a room full of people talking. And we know that, like in our subconsciously, we might remember that probably no one's going to bite our head off right now. But we start having this survival reaction like we are. And our brains might have those neuron pathways from when we're growing up that get ingrained, so that these negative neuron pathways, when we receive certain data, like people pressing in on us, that can go through our awareness, down our emotional centers, into our reptilian survival, and into the nervous system of the body as that electrical impulse. And it's hyperconductive because that neuron pathway is so well grooved out in our brain. And if we can remain conscious, and if we can see it happening, and we can see the software, we can see how we're interpreting it, and what that sort of coding, that program is underneath those underlying beliefs, that when people are pressed up against me, I need to manage my space, because if I don't, and then the hidden underlying belief could be that negative things will happen. I'll get physically hurt, I'll get insulted, I'll get humiliated, I'll get whatever. And that's like a high probability, because that's all in the underlying belief, that's all in the programming. Then we have that nervous system response, that stress response, that those thoughts will start to feed into the feeling again. That feeling of tension and nervousness gets stronger, the steam rises, we get more thoughts that multiply that, and our perception becomes reality, and we're heading deeper into this inversion state. And while we're in that inversion state, all our energy is turning inwards on us. and it's sapping us, sapping us, sapping us, sapping us. And it's not because of what other people are doing and saying, ultimately. Now, if somebody could come up and scream at you in the face, and that probably will, like, do some negative reaction, unless they're your best mate and they're doing, like, some sort of joke, right? And then you might reinterpret it another way. But little things like certain looks, certain things people are saying, certain body language can start to build that feeling. And if we're not conscious of it, it can amplify and multiply. And what we need to do is start to train new grooves in our brain and form new attachments, those neuron pathways, to attach different channels of ways of thinking about it and make those more conductive. And that's how in the long term, we can start to, when we see this happening, we can see the thought, we can see the pattern playing out, and we go, oh, there I go again, down that old conductive pathway. What am I believing to be true about this situation that might not be true? How could it not be true? What would I need to believe in order to feel positive about it? How could that be true? People are pressing in on me. How could it be true that I don't need to expend lots of energy managing myself to make sure I don't tread on people's toes? Well, I can see lots of people aren't managing themselves. They're bumping into other people and people are laughing and joking. The evidence of my eyes is telling me that I don't need to expend as much energy managing myself. Let me experiment and just try not expending a lot of energy right now. Can I interject? Yes, you can interject, little off life. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so what I find interesting is how I feel like I automatically default to the negative perceptions that I've formed on myself. And I feel like that has come from previous negative experiences. And I seem to really focus on those negative experiences. I don't know if you like spoke about this earlier, but I'll kind of, yeah, as I say, default to things like negative things I've heard about myself in the past. Even though I've also heard really positive things as well. Like, for example, like a negative thing that I've heard in the past that I interpret as negative anyway is that I am introverted and quiet. And those two things for me are like not good things because I'm kind of trying not to be them. But then by the same token, I've also heard people say, oh, you seem really confident and you carry yourself really well. And they seem to have like a really positive view of me. But it's weird that I most of the time ignore that. And when I go into social situations, for example, I'll just assume the negative and I'll just kind of doubt myself rather than kind of thinking about what positives could come out of it and how I could like positively have an influence on people. So yeah, so I kind of just wanted to add that because it was kind of bringing that, what you were talking about was kind of making me think of how I can apply it to my own life. And I thought I'd just share that. I don't know if you had anything to comment on that speech, Smithy.
It's beautiful that you can alchemize it. Beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's really cool when you can like actually see it like in your life, and you I think that's part of the becoming more conscious about it, and that's like part of the process, isn't it? That's like step number one, is to just realize it and then understand why that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And then coming up with a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we extrapolate that, right? Cody, what do you think of this? Have we said enough? Is it fair to assume right now that it's possible? It's not impossible, but it might be possible that maybe an introvert is someone who has a net loss of energy in these social interactions. And if it is possible to start to change and repolarize those moments so that we're not losing energy, we can see the beliefs that we're having about the situation, how our perception is causing us to believe that we need to expend energy, and then we can close that out. And in so doing, now that energy that was turning in on us and sapping us can now come back out into the room and just become more present in the room and start to generate outwards. And then maybe we can start to actually gain energy, even if it's just like if you're expending 49% energy, because I think you can do it both at the same time. where you're kind of gaining energy from a nice conversation, but you're like losing energy because you might be trying to manage the way you sound or something. If you can just get it so you're 51% gaining, 49% losing, then you're at a net positive. Then maybe you don't have to feel so drained in interactions. What do you think of that?
Absolutely. When we're in social situations and we feel drained of energy, I really do think it's introverts. They are able to pick up on energy a lot quicker than extroverts, because extroverts are more about putting that energy out there, whereas introverts are more like feeling, deconstructing, like experiencing those feelings. But if a person could learn to potentially bounce that kind of lost energy off, then it could work to equal out, like balance out.
That's interesting what you say about, because when you're in introversion, you are seeing the thoughts and you're feeling the feelings more deeply, right? So, but then if you're an extroversion, you're like more radiating outwards. Your attention is on the external, and when you're in the, as opposed to having the attention on the internal. So then what I think works, because it's like you can't do it like all the time. It's just, you just can't. Slowly over time you can do it. You can more and more be gaining energy. And when, because sometimes you could, because you're slipping from, your awareness is going from external to internal, just like your breath. It's like breathe in, breathe out. Somebody comes in and slams the door, your attention is outwards. And then you're thinking, oh, that was kind of rude of them to like come in and slam the door. And then you go inwards. But that's like, that thought, there's a quality to that thought that's like draining. Oh, that's rude of them to like, and it's judgment. Big one. Whereas if somebody comes in, they slam the door, and you go in like, oh, that's good, they've shut out the cold wind. And it's like positive gain, but your attention's internal. So there's these moments where your attention's focused externally, interpreting things positively or negatively. And then where your attention is focused internally, interpreting things positively or negatively. And if you could just, over like the average of the entire evening, you'll be going in, out, positive, negative, positive, negative. But if throughout like every sort of 10 minutes or so, if you're just sort of checking, or like half an hour, 15 minutes, or every hour or so, you're like, am I gaining or losing? Is my battery getting lower? Did it get lower in the last hour? Or has it been like sort of moving up and down, but steadily moving up? And if you, as somebody who, no matter where you go, because there are some people who this is their reality, wherever they go, it's the battery's just going to be going down steadily. Sometimes it will go down slower, sometimes it will go down quicker. But if that person could learn how to, through this sort of process of using their mind, changing their perception, using their thoughts, becoming aware of this thing happening, they can start to at least maintain their level, if not steadily grow. I think that would be something that would be very valuable to a lot of people. And that's what I think this kind of stuff that we're talking about, I think that is the ultimate reward of it. And I think it can produce that. And so that's something that if you've stuck around like Cody has, and anybody else who's been watching this conversation, thank you. Miriam, if you're still here, I wish Miriam was still here to hear that. Then maybe that's giving you something you can use, and so you don't feel quite so drained. What do you think?
As someone that's not been here for the full live, could you give like the 3 top takeaways of this video so that I can actually like implement them in my next social interaction?
I would like to ask Cody what she thinks of that. Like, Cody, has there been anything that you think you could use? Somebody else has wanted to join right now. Most High, you're going to join, but I'm just asking Cody a question right now, and then we can hear from you. But yeah, Cody, what do you think? Oh no, they've gone. So top 3 things, Cody, that you could. What was it? Sorry, Little Off Life.
Just the top 3 things, or it doesn't need to be 3, but something that I could take away from today's video to implement in my next social interaction to feel more at ease or, more confident?
Can you do three, Cody? Is there a top three or just one? Like whatever you've got from today.
Everybody has similar worries and concerns with social interactions. It's just how deep it goes. People's negative opinions or judgment of you will always be a projection of how they feel about themselves. And evolutionary wise, initially humans only had two parts of the brain, and then they grew a third, which was like social consciousness, awareness, like all of those different things, something more than primitive and survival. So if you ever find yourself feeling uncomfortable and you don't know why, just ask yourself why.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of that before, so that's really cool.
If you're ever feeling uncomfortable, just ask yourself why. That's an interesting one. Because I do think that if you just put your attention on it and you hold your attention on that question long enough, reasons will start to emerge that you might not have been aware of. Like you were aware of them, like you're aware of the floor on your feet, that you can feel it, or the bum on the seat on your bum, you can feel it right now, but your attention isn't on it. And there are moments where you're feeling uncomfortable because of something, some sort of belief or something going on with the way you're interpreting the situation. And if you ask yourself why, if you put your attention on it, it might just dissolve that just all by itself without having to do anything. Do you think that's possible, Cody?
If it helps, when I did that, I asked myself why. Like on a piece of paper, I asked myself questions that I'd want to ask my mother or my daughter. And any kind of issue that came up with that, I asked why, and that was a huge catalyst for my brain starting to grow, I guess, fully cook.
What is it about the perspective of the mum, or talking to your mum or your daughter, that open that up for you?
Because a lot of self-limiting beliefs are passed down through generations. So I wanted to know, what would it have been like for my mum dealing with a certain issue, and then what will it feel like for my daughter to go through that issue? Because obviously I'm AFAB, so like we're gonna have similar shared experiences. So because we have the similar shared experiences, it also makes more room for growth in the future as society changes, as we change. We allow ourselves to understand where we come from, but where the next generation of us is heading, or even if you don't want kids, like where the next generation of society is going when it comes to our self-limiting beliefs, because drawing from other people's experiences can help us realize that we're not as alone with that.
What I'm hearing is that changing the perspective is probably the most important thing you can do. Is that right? What do you think, Little Loft Life?
Changing the perspective in terms of looking at previous generations and like future generations and everything.
If you were to think of a negative experience or something you've had where you can feel that you're feeling that self-consciousness, you're feeling like that you're losing energy in that situation, like maybe you're at the pub or something with friends or like colleagues or whatever, and you can feel that you're losing a lot of energy in that. Somehow you're feeling uncomfortable and you can feel your batteries running out. Do you think there's any way you could like look at that situation with that perspective Cody said, like you're seeing your daughter going through that, and what would you say to her, or what would you ask her about that feeling to help her have more insight so that she didn't have to feel that drain, but she could either stop the drain or get more positive again?
That's an interesting one. I think for me, like my crutch in that sort of situation would just be to like drink more. But I know that that's not obviously what I'm encouraging. But what I would say is that it's not always what it seems. Like, I know that when your social battery is dying, it's really hard to kind of dig yourself back out of it. Because I feel like once you've attached yourself to thinking, oh, my social battery's changed, it's going down, and once you kind of think that, it's really hard to come back from it. So I guess like what I would say is, I'm hearing myself on other people's things, so it's kind of putting me off. But what I would say is to just not think that just because you've got this thought, it's necessarily right. You know what I mean? Like it could be like what I was saying before, it could be the opposite. Like people could be having this positive perception of you rather than a negative perception. And like there's no actual proof that anything around you is negative. It's just that maybe once you've snowballed into that kind of like negative mindset about the situation, then once you kind of snowball from there, it's hard to come back from it. So yeah, just don't accept what you're telling yourself as like factually true, and always think that there might be a positive that can come from it.
Absolutely. If it helps, I just walk away. If I'm sick of a social situation, I'll be like, I'm people tired. Bye, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I guess that's like you're like forgiving yourself for it.
Yeah.
You're not attaching a lot of identity with that interaction, and you're not kind of you're sort of detaching yourself from it, and you're saying, right, okay, I'll move on, and I can always try again next time, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, I'm gonna go. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do right now. I need to go get some din-dins. But Cody, thank you so much for joining us. And Little Loft Life as well. Thank you for coming. Yes.
All right, thank
Cody's
you.
asking you, Little Loft Life, may I ask your pronouns, please?
She.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Cody. And thank you, Little Loft Life. Thanks so much, Cody. Amazing insights.
Thank you.
It was so nice to talk to you. One last question. Oh, she's gone.
It's just us.
Ask her, if the conversation is making her feel better or freer in some way, because that's what I'd be interested to know. But anyway, how about you?
I guess we'll never know.
Yes, we'll never know. Well, maybe Cody will tune in on the next one. But Little Loft Life, do you feel freer after this conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I think I can go into. I feel like it's about being mindful about it and not kind of just diving into it and expecting nothing to change. But I think it's like a slow process, isn't it? It's not about kind of thinking, oh, well, just because I'm going to change my perspective on things, that means that the next time I'm going to go into a social situation, it's going to be amazing. And I liked how Cody kind of took away that pressure by saying, like, if I don't feel it, then I'm just going to leave. So I think, yeah.
I think that what you just said, like, that's one way you can tell that it's an inverted perspective, that it's not true, is if it's saying nothing's going to change, but we know that things are changing constantly. Everything is in a constant state of change, is it not?
Yeah. Except
the fact that everything's always changing, that doesn't change. Wait, what?
Yeah, I guess that's one thing that's consistent. I think, yeah, for me, like I think it's like a really hard one for me because I do think that I need to sort of, remove a lot of the negative associations that I have with like being social and stuff and stuff like that. And I suppose like, yeah, making it more positive. Because like there is evidence that I am socially capable. like I've always feel like, oh, I'm not socially capable, but then actually there's like a loads of situations where I've been able to like do quite well with it. So yeah, that's all I'd say.
Lovely. Thanks to the Love Life. Thank you everyone for staying and watching. Really appreciate you joining. We're going to do this again in the future, so give us a follow, give Little Love Life a follow, give myself a follow, and yeah, we'll all hang out again soon and have more conversations about how to change your voice, how to help yourself out if you're an introvert, if you expend a lot of energy in social situations, how to maintain some of that, not lose quite so much, and hopefully make a bit more of those social interactions. So yeah, much more to come. Thank you so much, guys. Speech Smithy out.
Thank you. Bye.